Hi folks, welcome back to another one of our Vapor Chief Before You Buy videos. We're in part 3 of our discussion about increasing the pressure on our machines, and now we're going to talk about the components and why we feel that we can increase the pressure on our machines and still have a high performing machine and still be safe at a higher pressure. And again, we're still not exceeding some of the other competitors that are out there. Some of the other competitors are advertising slightly higher pressure on a couple of machines in a certain category, or our refill machine compares to one of the other more popular machines out there. And even at the 110, we're still going to be a little bit lower than them, but I think we have just as good or better volume. And our 125 machine, which is going up to 135, is still going to be rated a little bit less than one of the competitors, but we think it's going to be a better performer. And we thought both of these machines were performing very well against those competitors before we decided to increase the pressure. So let's talk about what we have to do to make sure that the machine can handle the pressure, be safe, and still perform very well. Now again, one of our other competitors thought that we're just buying components that everybody else is using, and we're not using anything that's different, and we disputed that in another video, and we'll kind of touch on some of those things here. Now let's start off with the gauge itself. We're using a very, very highly rated pressure gauge. It reads both bar and PSI. It's made of stainless steel. This is a good gauge. There's actually some weight to this. Some of the other machines out there, they're using cheaper plastic gauges. And again, because there's a lot of pressure being fed into the back of this gauge to give you the reading, some cheaper gauges, they warp, they don't hold up, and they'll just break after a while. Now that's not going to affect the machine. You just won't get a pressure reading. But again, we want to use the best gauge available, and we feel that this is that gauge. Let's talk about, this is the pressure sensor. Now, we don't want to talk too much about this because this is the part that actually adjusts the pressure. And again, we don't want anybody going into any of our machines, touching this, increasing the pressure even more. It's going to void your warranty. It's a safety thing. Don't do it. The pressure's high enough the way we have them. Don't mess with this. Now, there's a rating on this. So yes, this is made by a company in Europe that most of the other manufacturers buy something very, very similar to this. But we have these specifically made for us. And we have a build sheet that is sent in to this manufacturer, and these are built specifically for us. They're rated at a certain PSI and bar rating, and inside there's a better spring and there's a better bladder, because as the pressure goes in here, what it does is it raises the bladder, and then there's a micro switch here, and when that pressure reaches a certain point, it kicks off the micro switch, and then it tells the computer to shut the pressure down. So that's how this works in shutting the pressure down. But no, this is not like every single one of them out there on the lower rated machines. We're having these made specifically for us, and we have a build sheet that goes to this manufacturer because we need them rated at a certain pressure for both our refill and our injection machine. And the spring is rated a little bit better, and the bladder inside is rated a little bit better. So this is a better pressure sensor than some of the other ones that are out there on some of the lower graded machines. Let's talk about the pump. Now, a pump doesn't actually go towards pressure and making pressure inside a machine, and this is a common pump, but this is a more heavy-duty pump than some of the other smaller pumps that are out there on some of the more residential machines. So this is a pump made by a different company than the common pump that's out there, because we wanted a pump that could handle pumping water into a pressurized boiler, and that's what happens. After the machine is under pressure and the boiler requests water in both our refill machines or any refill machine that's out there, you have to be able to pump water through the pressure in the boiler. Now, as that pressure increases, the pump has a harder time pumping the water to fill the boiler through the already pressurized boiler. We've seen that in some of our machines where these pumps either didn't last quite as long or they were taking too long to fill the boiler. So we went out and we sourced a better pump. Looks exactly the same as a lot of the other pumps that are out there, but it's a better pump and it's rated to flow more water. So yes, our pump is a little bit better than some of the other ones that might be out there. It's rated higher. Let's get into temperature sensor. It's a safety thing. Everything is a safety thing. The pressure sensor is a safety thing that has to turn off so the machine doesn't overpressurize. This thermal switch is a safety. It's mounted on the bottom of our heater. It's rated at a certain degree where if it exceeds that temperature, then it's going to tell the computer to shut everything down and turn the heater off. We wanted to make sure that this was rated as high as it could be to make sure that if the pressure sensor failed, this is the backup, this is going to turn the heater off and not have any problems in overpressurizing the machine. So we sourced the best one of these and the highest rated temperature ratings that we could. So we feel that this one is the best one out there, and this is mounted directly on the bottom of our heater where there's the most heat, so we're getting an accurate temperature reading, where if it does exceed that temperature, it's going to kick the heater off and we're not going to have a problem. Now, there's a third safety built into these machines, and it's called the pressure relief valve. Now, this pressure relief valve, again, if the other safeties failed and the pressure inside the boiler started getting higher and higher and higher, this would sense that and it would release itself. There's a spring inside of this. It would release itself and it would exhaust excess steam throughout the bottom and relieve itself of the pressure. Now, we've used a smaller one of these in the past, rated at a lower pressure rating, and we found that sometimes these didn't hold up as long as we wanted them to, even though they were rated at a high pressure. So what we do now is we use a bigger body than a lot of the other competitors use, and we use a thicker and more heavy-duty spring inside here. So this is rated at a very, very high pressure rating, and it's going to last a long time because this spring is under constant pressure because it's mounted at the top of the boiler. So we wanted to make sure this, this is for our refill machine, and this monster, which is even rated higher, this monster relief valve compared to this and some of the other smaller refill machines, you're only going to have a relief valve that's that big. This one goes in our injection machine. So we're serious about these pressure relief valves, and we want them rated as high as possible, so not only don't they fail, but they're going to be safe, and if the machine does have to relieve itself of pressure, the spring can handle it, it's not going to break, and it's a little bit scary when these things go off, but it's kind of like a teapot relieving itself once you've made enough boiling water on your stove to make tea. We use, instead of a plastic nipple in the end of our hose that plugs into the machine on the outlet end, we use brass. We wanted this to be as strong as possible, so we found that some of the plastic ones could warp or melt under higher pressure and higher heat. We use a brass nipple, which goes into the outlet of both of our machines on the refill and the injection machine. This just holds up because it's brass instead of plastic. Now, all the other internal fittings, we need fittings in certain places to route certain things and screw certain things into the boiler. We use nothing but stainless steel. So stainless steel, obviously it's not going to warp, and once they're in there, they're not going to back themselves out. And most other manufacturers are going to use either brass or stainless steel. But again, we're doing not only what everybody else does, but if we can, we're going the extra mile. Now, this tube right here, this is one of our feed tubes coming off the boiler. This is not plastic. This is actually Teflon, PTFE. Now, PTFE Teflon is a form of plastic, but we also have a certification on this that when we buy this in a roll, that it's pure Teflon. There's no recycled material in this because we found that some of these tubes, if they're any bit recycled, these can fail. And we don't want them to fail under pressure. So we use this tubing. We use a really good fitting on the end of the tubes. We flare it. So this handles pressure extremely well. And because this is Teflon, nothing sticks to Teflon. If you've seen that on frying pans or the old paint sealants on cars, back in the day, they were talking about Teflon sealants that went on cars. Nothing's going to stick to this. So we use this instead of brass, and some people use a thinner piece of brass as their feed tubes. We like to use Teflon because this has a bigger diameter, and because it's Teflon, no calcium or any other kind of debris is going to stick to the inside walls. So we like this because this is going to hold up a lot longer, and this is about the best material that we found. But we also have a certification on this to make sure that when the Teflon goes into our machines, that we're sourcing it from the manufacturer as pure Teflon. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in our components is our circuit board. Now, any refill machine that's an automatic refill is going to need some kind of computer board, circuit board, PCB board, whatever you want to call it, to control a lot of different functions. And everybody uses their own different manufacturer as far as a circuit board, and this circuit board might again be common to some of the other manufacturers. But what we're doing is we're changing the software on this. We do a number of things and change the software on this, and we've manipulated this board a little bit different to handle our injection, and we do a couple of things different. So we might take a stock circuit board, but we're doing certain things with it. And what we're also doing now in machines that will be made in late 2017, or actually summer of 2017, which is when I'm doing this video, is what we're doing is we're putting a sleep timer on our machines, meaning that it used to be that your machine could stay plugged in, it could stay at heat, at temperature for an infinite amount of hours, and usually nothing would happen. The heater would kick on, it would stay in pressure. And what that does is it wastes a little bit of electricity, and it also keeps stress on the components. So what we're doing now in manipulating these circuit boards is we're programming the software where we're putting a sleep timer almost like on your computer, your laptop, your iPad, where after 10 minutes, the machine's going to go to sleep. So it's going to go to sleep, almost turn itself off, but if you come back, if you're not using the machine for 10 minutes, it's going to go into sleep mode. Now, after 10 minutes, you can come back and just click your steam trigger and the machine will be back in business. Now, you might have lost a little bit of pressure on your gauge in that time because the way this is going to program the heater, it's going to say once it goes into sleep mode, we don't want any more electricity going to the heater, we want to give the machine a break. Now, if you leave your machine sitting there for more than an hour, you go to lunch, you're doing something else in your shop, your home, whatever you may be. If the machine sleeps for an hour, it's just going to turn itself off. It's going to turn itself off and lose power. And then after an hour, you would just have to come back and turn your switch back on, turn it off and then turn it back on. So that's something we're doing that we don't know if the other manufacturers are doing yet, but it's another safety thing and it's a requirement in Europe, which is going to come into play very soon, and our manufacturer is on top of that. So we've talked about components, and we've talked about the reason why we think that being 10 psi higher on our machines is no problem at all, because we're using upgraded components that one of our other competitors really disputes that we're doing. So we really want to put that to rest. And we want to tell you that, yeah, we are increasing our pressure, but we're not increasing our pressure, again, just to have higher specs than the competition and to separate ourselves even more from the competition and to say, look at me, look at what we have. Because we know on paper, on a description page on the internet, if you see higher pressure, which is going to equate to higher heat, it's going to equate to higher exit temperature at your steam outlet, all that is going to go up. It's only going to go up a little bit, but it is 10 psi. So we're not doing that just to win the competition war in specs. It is going to look better on a spec page on the internet and wherever you happen to be comparing the machines, but we want to explain the reason why we're able to do this and increase the machine, and it's only 10 psi. It's not like saying we're going up on every machine 25 psi, and now all of a sudden we're blowing everybody else out of the water. We can't do that. We don't want to do that. We're still putting the great warranty on these machines. You're not losing anything on the warranty. But we are increasing the pressure, and if you wanted to wonder why all of a sudden Vapor Chief is increasing the pressure, well, yeah, we do want to have better specs. We do want you to have a better working pressure as you use the machine, but I think we've just explained why the machines can handle the slight increase in pressure. And now again, as you do your comparisons, you're going to see our new specs based on whatever the competitors are doing. Now, if the competitors want to increase their pressure, we hope that they also are already using upgraded components, or they will upgrade their components to handle any higher pressure that they may do in the future. But this is what we're doing as of right now. We wanted to put it out there, and as you see our advertisement on the higher specs, we wanted to do a video and explain it to you. So that was part 3 of 3 on our increased pressure videos, and we hope that the increased pressure is going to help you. And as I said, we've been making them actually for a few months, and they're out in the field already in a number of shops, in a number of commercial locations, and we're not having any problems. So feel free to buy them at the higher pressure. I think you'll enjoy the added working pressure that you're going to get with this and higher performance. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call.